Hi, Dave and Janice back with you from No Fixed Address. This week we are doing part 2 of our 3-part series on how to install hydraulic disc brakes on our trailer.
And because this is Dave's expertise, I'm going to be holding the camera.
You'll be here in spirit. Anyway, in today's video we're going to be installing the hydraulic brake lines. So this is part 2. In part 1 I installed the hydraulic pump. And if you haven't seen that video yet, I encourage you to hit the link above, or in the description there's a link as well, so you can go and check out that video. The third part will be completing the system, installing the hydraulic disc brakes and bleeding the brake lines and testing the system. So let's get started. So I've laid the brake lines out on the rear ramp of the trailer just so that I can make sure I have all of the components and that I know exactly how they go together. There's a diagram that's available on the supplier's website that shows you how this all goes together, but it's really quite simple. This longer tube here will come from the pump, so the pump will be attached here. Comes back to this 4-way connector. The short end will drop down to the left forwardmost tire, and the longer lead will go across to the right-hand tire. Then a short connector to get back to another 4-way, so this will be for the middle of the 3 axles. Left tire off of here, right tire down there. Another connection back to the 3rd axle, this time a 3-way connector. So I've removed one wheel from the left-hand side to figure out how I'm going to route these brake lines. Technically speaking, it is not cool to be using the leveling system to support your trailer. So in order to alleviate any risk there, I'm just going to be removing one wheel at a time. I know that the trailer can be supported by 2 wheels because it has to do that in case you get a blowout while you're going down the highway. So I know that if the leveling system, which is supporting the trailer right now, was to fail, that these 2 wheels would support this side of the trailer and it wouldn't collapse to the ground. Nevertheless, I will not be working very much underneath this. I'll be avoiding that as much as possible. I took this wheel off so that I could figure out how I'm going to get the brake lines down to the wheels here, and get the brake line routed from the front of the trailer back to here. One option is to run it right along the frame of the trailer, and that of course would be the simplest option because it's all exposed and easily accessed. However, I'm not real comfortable with that idea because it leaves the brake lines exposed the whole way, and if you were to get a blowout and tear up a brake line, that takes all of your brakes out, not just that one. So I'm going to attempt to route them up above the belly cover on the trailer so that they're not exposed to the elements, and just have a small hole where the short line will drop down to each wheel. So I'm going to take a few of these screws out along the side that are attaching the belly cover and see if I can get access to route the brake line up above that along this side here. While we're here, let's just talk about what we're seeing on the axle here. This of course is the existing drum brake that's on the trailer. We'll be replacing that in part 3 of this series, but that's what it looks like right now before it's been replaced. This is the 2 wires that come down to control the brake, and those are routed up inside the frame. Those won't be used either. They'll be cut off when we're done part 3. I'm not sure how well you're going to be able to see this. I've removed a few of the screws holding the edge of the belly cover on, and just jammed a couple of wheel nuts up in there to hold it open while we have a look in there. What we're seeing here is a sheet of reflective foil insulation right there, and the belly cover here. I don't think I want to go above that insulation, so I'm thinking I'll just tuck the brake line in above the belly cover but below the insulation. Then there'll just be a small hole in the belly cover to drop down. So there'll be one here to drop down to the brake, which will be somewhere around here, and again on the other 5 wheels as well. One complication I'm going to have to deal with is right here on the TH series of momentum trailers. They have a drop frame which gives you more cargo capacity up front, and by that I mean the rear frame member comes along and then it drops down and there's another frame member that goes up to the front. So this drop right here I have to deal with. So if I'm tucking the brake line in along here, what do I do once I get there? Once I get to this point, I need to get down and along underneath here. A couple options. I could come out at this point and then run along the frame. Now we're away from the tires, so if I have a tire blowout, I don't need to worry about it taking out a brake line here. One other option is to open up the belly cover down here and see whether there's a way for me to route the brake line up in behind here and then continue on above. So I'm going to remove more screws along here and down here to have a look in and see what my options are. So I removed a few screws here and was able to gain access into that area. There's that foil insulation I was telling you about. And I was able to reach my hand up in there all the way up into there. So it should be no problem getting the brake line routed up in through that. So the only other part I need to figure out is how am I going to get out of the generator compartment up here from the pump. The pump is just on the other side of this panel right here. This is the propane compartment on the left side of the trailer. So I think I'm going to drill a hole through that panel. I've got this grommet here that I'll put in the hole to protect the brake line. It'll come out there, run down, across the frame here, and then it'll go into the belly just here. So that'll be the only part that will be exposed, and I can live with that. That's not too bad at all. I'll make sure to protect the hose when it goes across any of these edges. I don't want it wearing as we go down the road. So we're inside the generator compartment, and there's the pump that we installed in part 1 of this series. And there's where I'm going to be going through the panel. You can see a screw right there. That's one of the screws that's holding on the propane tank strap. So I will go between it and the frame member. So there's the propane tank strap. That's the screw we were just talking about. I think I'm going to just take this entire strap off. Get it out of my way. I'm going to be using this step drill bit to drill a hole through this sheet metal panel. If you haven't used these before, they are absolutely great for drilling nice round holes through sheet metal. No matter what size. I mean, they start out very small. This one I think is 1/4 inch up to 1 1/4 or something like that. The problem with just regular twist bits is they don't drill round holes in thin sheet metal. These ones always do, and they're much easier to control and use as well. So I just checked again inside where the pump is, and it turns out just above where this screw hole here is, sort of around here would be nice and even with the outlet for the hydraulic fluid on the pump. So I think I'm going to put my hole right about there. So each step makes it that much bigger. I need to go to 1 inch for this grommet. Another thing about the step bit is it leaves the edge nice and smooth. I'm going to go in and clean up the inside as well. There, nice and smooth. That one little burr there, just take that off. Good. Get the grommet installed. Here we have it. That'll be a nice safe exit for the brake line coming through there, and I will end up using some silicone caulking in there to seal that up so that no water can get in, and it should be good. The brake lines come with these little plastic caps on each end. It's important to keep those on while you're doing all this work, because the last thing you want is any dirt getting inside these lines. So leave them on until you're absolutely ready to make a connection. So I'm going to go in and hook that onto the pump now. A little bit of hydraulic fluid will come out when you remove that plug, so be prepared for that. So I'm not going to tighten that right down right now. I'll tighten all of the fittings at the end. But right now it's just finger tight. So now we can start working the other end of that brake line towards the first axle. So there's plenty of brake line there. It goes to about a meter, a little more than 3 feet beyond the first axle. So there'll be a little bit of extra slack. I'll have to figure out where I want to put that, up underneath the belly, or maybe coil it up in beside the pump. But I'll figure that out after I've got it routed all the way back in the actual place it's going to be, because some of that's slack's going to get used up going up over the step frame and that kind of thing. So I'm going to start routing the brake line up through underneath the belly now. That'll give me access to get in there. Making sure that it goes between the belly cover and the aluminum foil insulation. Okay, I'm going to put some of these screws back in now. Make sure this can't come back out while I'm working on it. So the brake line is currently coming out the bottom of the step here. Now I'm going to try and route it up to here. There it is. Just going to check and make sure there aren't any sharp edges that it's going over. Nice and smooth here because the sheet metal bends in the direction it's going. Yeah, it doesn't seem to be anything in there either, so I think that'll be good. Alright, I'll finish buttoning this up here now, and we'll continue from this point towards the back. There. So that's all tight. So now I'm just going to remove more of these screws along the side here and continue routing this brake line. I'm thinking I'll just leave the excess slack in this brake line coiled up above there. It's only a couple of feet worth, not much, and it'll be protected up in there. So if you look at your existing drum brake, this is the rear side of it. You want your brake line to come out of the belly at about even with that rear side. So I'm going to go to the other side and cut a small hole in the belly and try and send the fish wire through to this side so that I can pull that cross piece of brake line through. Well, I managed to get the fish wire out this side, so that's great. I'll be able to now pull that line through. I'm just going to tape the brake line onto this wire that I pushed through there. And now I'm going to go to the other side and pull this through. There it is. I think I'm just going to drop the short piece of brake line down through the existing hole where the wires go through right now. It's in about the right spot. No point in making a new hole when I don't need this one anymore. So I'm just going to clip those wires off now and pull them back up through. Clean that hole out a bit and see if I can get the short piece down through there. Okay, so we got the 4-way connector here. So that from the pump is going to go in opposite the short length that will go between this axle and the next. And then the one that goes across to the other side will be on one side. And then the short piece that drops down to this brake will go in the opposite side here. And that's going to go up to the next wheel. I'm going to shove that in that direction. This guy's got to drop down here. Like that. That'll be good. This will be the only exposed piece of brake line, part that just drops down to the caliper. So now I just need to repeat that process for the next 2 axles. I'm not going to film all of that because, like I say, it's just a repeat of what we've already seen. And so we'll zip through that and I'll show you what it looks like at the end. Okay, I've got all 3 axles done now. I'm underneath the trailer, obviously, and there you can see the right rear wheel. The other 2 wheels up there, you can see the brake line dropping down. Getting eaten by mosquitoes doing this. And there's the left side. These are the clamps that come with the brake line kit for fastening it in place, and I'm just going to use these self-drilling screws to attach them. I'll put a few down through here, and that should be about the only place I need them. So there it is, completed. Got a couple of clamps in there, running it down, and underneath I've got a couple more there, and one right underneath. And I've managed to arrange it so that it actually doesn't touch any of these corners as it goes by them, so there's no chance of it rubbing on there. There's a look at the tools I used today on this phase of the project. like phase one when we were installing the pump. There's nothing special here really. These are the kind of things that you would normally have in a toolkit for on-the-road maintenance anyway. That wraps up part 2 of this 3-part series on installing hydraulic disc brakes on our trailer. If you'd like to see part 1, I'll leave a link above as well as in the description below. Today's effort took me about 6 hours, and that included all the filming time, so it's a pretty quick process. Filming makes it take much longer than it actually would. Not a difficult operation at all. Pretty much anybody with any basic skills would be able to do what I did today. Part 3 will be about 10 days from now, and in it we will be completing this job, installing the calipers and discs and bleeding the brake system and testing it. If you enjoyed the video, please hit the thumbs up button, hit subscribe, and then the bell symbol so you'll get notifications when we release the next video. Thanks very much for joining me.